It's roster reset day here at Locked On Sharks. So going to look at who's left, who's arrived, which players are locks to make the roster, which players are probable, and which players are going to be battling for those final positions, and a way too early line combos with and without Erik Karlsson here on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now and Inside the Rink, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day, and I know we are 3 times a week, but this week you're getting some extra content. We've got 2 Erik Karlsson episodes at the beginning of the week. We had Erik Karlsson kind of looking at some fake trades that were out on the internets. And then I talked with Hunter about what a potential Erik Karlsson to the Penguins would look like and why it makes too much sense, I think, for the Penguins to try to trade for Erik Karlsson. And then tomorrow we have a special guest as well. But today we're going to look at the state of the Sharks roster and kind of look at the players who've been added, the players who have been subtracted. Again, which players are locks, which players I think are probables, and then which players I think are going to be battling for those spots. But before we get into all that and a way too early playoff, way too early line combos. Do want to know this episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, the roster, right? And I think we've seen with Mike Grier being very active to continue to in this roster churning phase, right? Taking kind of the theme of this summer was taking swings on guys who were maybe underutilized or maybe a little disappointing on other teams or players who had shown promise, and kind of sweeping out some of the underutilized guys who had not shown enough, or your guys who had just kind of had their opportunities with the Sharks as we continue to see this from Mike Grier. And looking at the roster from the start of last season to what the roster is going to look like at the start of this season, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of new names coming and going. That's to be expected, right? With a rebuild, is trying to kind of filter through and shift through some of these guys and see who can stick around or who is a good asset for another team that you can maybe get something out of them going forward. But let's start with the subtractions, right? The guys who no longer part of the Sharks organization. And this isn't including your guys who were traded at the trade deadline. These are guys who were on the roster basically at the end of the season or part of the organization basically at the end of the season. And, I kind of focused on guys who had played at least a fair amount of games for the Sharks. Kyle Criscolos, Andrew Agazinos, who spent the majority of the season in the Barracuda. I guess Aaron Dell did spend most of it. But looking in alphabetical order by last name, goalie Aaron Dell, still a free agent. Forward Jonah Gadovich, who I believe is still a free agent. Let me double check on that. Yep, still a free agent. I know he was dealing with an injury all of last season, but he's still available if you want him. Noah Gregor, also still a free agent. Andreas Johnson, who came over in part of the Timo Meier trade, is kind of a big contract coming back. He did sign a 1-year, $800,000 contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Martin Kaut, of course, we all know about the Martin Kaut saga. RFA, Sharks still own his rights. So if he wants to come back to the NHL, the Sharks do own his rights. He decided to go back to Europe, so he's going to be playing over there. Steven Lorentz was part of the Anthony Duclair trade. And so he is now playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, for the Florida Panthers. I got Penguins on the mind today. Jared Pouliot, Pittsburgh guy. He is signed with the Dallas Stars organization, so he'll probably be playing most of the season with the Texas Stars in the AHL. James Reimer signed as a free agent with the Detroit Red Wings, and Evgeny Svechnikov, I believe, is still a free agent and out there. So I'm not saying that these guys, a lot of these guys are there's a potential that they could be back, but I think we kind of know who most of these guys are, but it's pretty, you can kind of tell, right, where if your team is bad, a lot of your cast-offs aren't getting signed. That's kind of a pointing towards your team being a bad team. While good teams, if their cast-offs are getting signed right away, you're usually, kind of points to you being a good team. So, with basically half of these guys still out there as free agents, helps to point to the state of the Sharks organization. But some of the additions Mike Grier has made. So kind of the theme with this is, like I talked about earlier, is guys who maybe are given another opportunity or given a chance with some more opportunities or more ice time, or, maybe a little bit higher in the lineup, and see what you can kind of get out of these guys, or guys who have shown promise before. So, goalie Mackenzie Blackwood, who they acquired for a 6th-round pick from the New Jersey Devils. Kyle Burroughs, who is a former Vancouver Canuck, signed a 3-year, $1.1 million AAV contract. Ryan Carpenter, former Sharks, bounced around, mostly been an AHL guy. Anthony Duclair, who they traded for Steven Lorentz, and then a draft pick as well. Leon Gavanke, who was part of the Winnipeg organization, but never got that chance to play in the NHL, even though he tore it up in the AHL. Valtteri Puli, a Finnish, or part of the Liga, I believe. Kind of an opportunity where 6'6" guy, raw player, but you're taking chances on some of these guys who've at least shown it somewhere else, right? Georgi Romanov, goalie, is going to be playing the AHL all season, but still taking a chance on this guy. Scott Sabarin, AHL guys, bounced around. Giovanni Smith, kind of one of those AHL, NHL tweeners who never really could kind of stick with the Red Wings, but will bring some grit and toughness. Nathan Todd, again, one of those kind of AHL, NHL tweener guys. And then Filip Zadina, right, the big reclamation project of a former 1st-round pick who could, given a second opportunity, given a new lease on life here, given a chance to, play with good centers, hopefully, in Couture and Hurdle. Given him, the talent's there, right? There's a reason he was a top 10 pick, a couple years ago, and he's only 23, right? So kind of the big theme for the Sharks this season is trying to find some guys, right, who can be part of your long-term solution, or that you can turn around and maybe make into something else later on. Looking at guys like Anthony Duclair, right? If some team comes calling for him on it still is a very, very good contract, or Filip Zadina, who I think would be, could still be considered a long-term piece for the Sharks, especially given his age at 23. Mackenzie Blackwood, right, who's shown promises, early in his career and has kind of fizzled out recently. Maybe a new change of scenery could be kind of the best thing for him. So, and expect to see that, right? Or a guy like Leon Gavanke, who showed well in the AHL, but just never got that chance in the NHL. He's probably going to get a chance in the NHL this year. I would not be surprised if Gavanke is playing NHL games for the Sharks this year. But a lot of guys here where you're going to give them an opportunity to see what they can prove. So before we look at my roster locks, my probables, and then who I think is going to be battling for those final roster spots, and then way too early lines, do need to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And let me get this all set up here. FanDuel, if you want to get into MLB betting, right now is the time to take your first swing. Go on to FanDuel. You get 10 times your first bet amount, bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Bet $20. You'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200. You can bet on everything from the money line to over under, who you think is going to hit the first home run. All an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so what does all these additions and stuff, what does this kind of mean for the Sharks, and which players are locks? Like I said, which players I think as long as they're on the team, that is the caveat with this. Looking at you, Erik Karlsson. As long as they're on the team, they will be on the roster. And then look at the probables, guys who I think are going to make the team, but there's still some question marks. Maybe it's health, maybe et cetera, et cetera. And then guys who are probables to make the team. So let us start with the forward group here. And which guys I think are locks to make the Sharks this season among the forwards. I don't think any of these really come as a surprise. Alexander Barabanov, of course, Logan Couture, Anthony Duclair, Tomas Hertl, Kevin Labanc, Oscar Lindblom, Nico Sturm, Filip Zadina, and Fabian Zetterlund. All of these guys, I think it would be shocking if they are not on the team, other than a trade, right? And Lindblom is the only guy I really considered, but I think with this contract, he will be on the Sharks. Is he playing every night? Probably not. Like he might be the 13th forward type of player for the Sharks this season, especially, he kind of established himself as a fourth line guy, but last year, but it was definitely a disappointing season compared to what we kind of expectations for him and the salary that he was signed last year. But Barabanov going into last year of his contract this year was going to potential trade asset, or if you want to sign him to a longer deal, exactly. Logan Couture, right? He wants to be in San Jose. Anthony Duclair, you just traded for him. Tomas Hertl, year one, just finished year one of his 8-year contract. Kevin Labanc, again, do I think Kevin Labanc's on the team by the end of the season? No. But for now, Kevin Labanc is going to be a Shark. I thought there might be something in the offseason. It doesn't seem like it. Maybe if there's an injury, but I think Kevin Labanc's value is not worth his contract, especially what his in this tight cap era. Nico Sturm, right? Great 3C for the Sharks last year. Had an amazing season. Filip Zadina, again, I know he is a bit of a reclamation project, but he's too skilled, and this Sharks team just does not have enough skill. And Fabian Zetterlund was one of the big pieces that you got back from Timo Meier trade. So all these guys will be playing if they're healthy and they're on the team. They will be locks for the to be playing kind of night in, night out. So among the defense goalies, your locks: Matt Benning, Kyle Burroughs, Mario Ferraro, Erik Karlsson, again, operating that he is still with San Jose, Mark-Edward Vlasic, and then the goalies Mackenzie Blackwood and Kaapo Kähkönen. I know I don't see Eetu Makiniemi kind of jumping over, I guess it would be Kaapo Kähkönen, especially for a guy who's played 2 NHL games, right? And I know Kaapo Kähkönen had a terrible season last year, and is going to be this is kind of a year-long trial for him to try to see if he can be an answer to a goalie question the Sharks have had for a long time. But I think it's a lot to ask for Eetu Makiniemi, who hasn't even finished the last 2 seasons healthy, to kind of take one of those spots. So, Burroughs, they just signed in free agency, 3 years, $1.1 million. And the other guys, right? Matt Benning was a great second pairing defenseman for the Sharks. Mario Ferraro, year 2 of his new contract. Erik Karlsson, the reigning Norris Trophy winner, and Mark-Edward Vlasic still has 3 years left on his $7 million contract, and was, if you don't look at the contract, he was a fine defenseman last year. It wasn't great, but he was fine defensively last year, and will still continue to, I think, kind of be that a solid 4 or 5, I think, for the Sharks. Way overpaid, but still. All right, next to my probables. So these are guys who I think will make the Sharks, and I I'm confident they will make the Sharks, but there's still a couple questions around them. And I think one, William Eklund, I think he will make the Sharks as long as he recovers from his shoulder surgery well. But I think he will be on the Sharks opening night. So same thing for Luke Kunin, right? He will be a Shark as long as his knee lets him. And 10 months. So he injured his knee beginning of December. So it'll be right around 10 months for him. So for recovery, we'll see if he has any setbacks. But from all accounts, it sounds like he is going to be good to go for training camp. So I would expect both those guys to be on the roster. And then the next two guys are young guys who showed up really well last year than the last season. I think they have the edge when it comes to player. They're going to be in battles to try to win these last spots, but I think they are positioned well, especially with the way they ended their season. And that's Jacob Peterson, forward, and then defenseman Henry Thrun. Peterson played really well for the Sharks to end the season, and I just think the younger guys who are going to be kind of battling, I think they're going to have a lot to kind of catch up with Peterson. And like I said, he played really well. He scored well. He played power play minutes for the Sharks last year, and kind of did everything you would want from him, especially kind of in a trade asset. And then Henry Thrun, kind of the same thing, played really well. Has spent the summer tied to David Quinn's hip, when played in the World Championships. I think he's still eligible to go play on the Barracuda. His waivers exempt. One of the few guys who actually is waivers exempt for the Sharks, especially on the defense. But I think they like him a lot, and I think he just has a bit of a leg up going into the training camp. So, and then the battles. So these guys are going to be the guys kind of fighting for the last spots here. And each of these guys has varying, kind of opportunities, right? So among the forwards, right, Thomas Bordeleau, Ryan Carpenter, Daniel Gushin, Giovanni Smith, and Nathan Todd. These are the realistic guys who I think could be on the Sharks roster to start the season. And if I had to rank, I would say Bordeleau is the most likely out of those guys to be playing. I know the end of the season kind of left a sour taste in a lot of Sharks fans' mouth. But if he comes in and has a great training camp and looks ready, and you can tell you've seen, if you follow him on Instagram, you can see he's been in the gym. He's talked about how this is a big year for him. And I think he is going to be coming, he has a chance, especially after the Steven Lorentz trade. There's an opening in a center position. And if Bordeleau wants to play center, this is going to be the best opportunity for him to try to do so. I put Gushin on there. I still think I think he's going to be playing with the Barracuda this year. But again, if he has a really, really nice training camp and plays really well in the preseason and shows that he can play in his own zone as well, there's a slight chance for him. Carpenter, I think, if Bordeleau doesn't show up very well or has a bad preseason, I think Carpenter kind of gets the nod. And then Giovanni Smith, I feel like he could be your 13th forward or 13th or 14th forward type of player. And that's kind of where I picture him. For the defense, I mean, it's going to be tough because if Erik Karlsson is traded, it opens things up, right? But these are the guys who are kind of battling and for that last kind of spot, right? Nick Cicek, Leon Gavanke, Nikolai Knyzhov, Jacob McDonald, Valtteri Pulley, and Radim Simek, right? And you look back at last year, Simek played a ton of games. I know he's dealt with injuries. Jacob McDonald played a ton of games. Knyzhov came back from his injury and looked solid. Nick Cicek kind of bounced back and forth between the AHL and the NHL. There's going to be a guy or a couple guys who played a ton of NHL games last year who's not going to make the team, right? They're one of these, some of these guys are going to be in either sitting in the press box night in, night out, or some of these guys are going to be playing in the AHL next year. And I think we'll have more time to kind of dig into these. But if Erik Karlsson is traded, that opens things up some more. But I think all these guys are kind of fighting for one spot, and we're not even sure if that one spot is going to be playing night in, night out. This might be you're fighting for that 7th spot on the Sharks defense group. So going to be plenty of time to dig into that a little bit more as we get closer to training camp. But if Karlsson gets traded, I think a guy like Gawanke has a real big opportunity to kind of, especially since they don't really have a lot of offensive defensemen left after Karlsson. So, but yeah, again, that's gonna be one of the most intriguing battles is the defense group. So before we continue and look at my way too early lines combination, so I do lines with Erik Karlsson and I do lines without, and kind of look at where we're at with the Sharks. Do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, proudly a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. We'll have one more episode this week where good friend of the show, William Eklund, returns. So we're going to talk with Eklund kind of about how his season went with last year. Of course, we'll check in with his shoulder. So you guys are going to make sure you don't want to miss that. So that's going to premiere Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube. And then, of course, the episode will come out wherever you get podcasts as well. So again, if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, you want to see all of our Swedish son, William Eklund, this seems like a great time to do so. So again, make sure you guys follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. All right. How do the lines look in a way too early? So first game, home game against the Golden Knights, October 12th, 7:30 p.m. Here's my way too early line. So this is the with Erik Karlsson. So if a trade doesn't occur, he starts the season with the Sharks. This is my Erik Karlsson lines. And you'll notice the lines are going to be too different right now between the Karlsson and the Karlsson list. I have Eklund, Hertl, Duclair as my first line. All gas, no brakes. And I think we saw that with the Sharks last year of them trying to, I don't want to say cheat for offense, but a little bit cheat for offense because they know they're kind of outgunned, right? And they're going to have to try to make it up. And I think that line of Hertl, I think Hertl's going to have a big season this year. I think Duclair, who has an opportunity to score a bunch of goals, and William Eklund, learning from two veterans like that, feels like a really good combo to me. Second line, Barabanov, Couture, Filip Zadina. Again, we know the Couture Barabanov chemistry, how well you saw the Couture numbers, especially with Barabanov and without, night and day. And then Zadina, right, who can slide in there, playing a top six role with two other talented players. Again, Barabanov, who can kind of be the facilitator, Couture play that kind of around the net, and then let Zadina shoot. And then my third line. This line, pretty fun, I think. Peterson, Bordeleau, Kunin. Kunin adds the grit and physicality to this line. Peterson, kind of your jack of all trades, and Bordeleau being kind of your setup guy for this line. It gives a right-handed shot. Again, the Sharks don't have too many right-handed shots, but giving a right-handed shot on this line here gives Bordeleau an opportunity to play with some guys who I think complement him well, right? You're putting guys in a position to succeed. And I think Peterson can provide that, kind of that whatever you need, almost like a mini Barabanov, right? Kind of whatever you need me to do, I can do that for you. And Kunin gets penalties and he scores goals. And I think that would provide a little bit of grit on this line, especially with Bordeleau being on the shorter or the smaller end, right? And then your fourth line, Fabian Zetterlund, Nico Sturm, and Kevin LeBanc. Gives you a little bit of scoring pop there with LeBanc and Sturm. And Zetterlund, who knows with him? You could put him wherever. He was the toughest one for me to slot. I originally had him on the third line, but then I would have had LeBanc and Kunin on the fourth line, and I thought that's too many. Like, I wanted to try to kind of split the right-handed players a little bit. But I think it gives your fourth line a little bit of pop there, right? You can, like, there's a little bit of skill on that fourth line with Zetterlund, Sturm, and LeBanc. So do I expect the lines look anything like this? No, I don't, because I think these lines are probably too much fun for most people. But I think they're fun anyway. So on defense, I have Thrun partnered with Karlsson. I have Ferraro and Benning, and then Vlasic and Burroughs. And then for my extras, so it would be Lindblom and Smith would be my extra forwards. So they'd be my 13th and 14th forwards. And the defense, like I said, Thrun, Karlsson, Ferraro, Benning, Vlasic, Burroughs. And then my extra would be Knyzhov. So if you could slide him in and out, if whatever you want to do. I think between the tie between Thrun and, if it's a tie between Thrun and Knyzhov, I'm going to give it to Thrun just because I think David Quinn loves him. So, and then Blackwood and Kakinen as the goalies. I think Blackwood wins the starting job. So without Karlsson, I think it looks a lot different. I think the roster would be much, much different. It'd be hard to tell just because what pieces you're getting back, right? If you're getting back a bad contract, if you're getting a defenseman, or if you have to go sign a guy like Matt Dumba, who knows? But I'm trying to piece it together with what I know. Forwards would all be the same. I think Gavanke would get the bump. So the way I would kind of split it up, I would go Vlasic, Gavanke, right? You have Gavanke can be your offensive defenseman. Vlasic, your veteran. Ferraro, Benning still. And then Thrun, Burroughs would be my bottom pairing defenseman. So Thrun, if Karlsson's there, I'm partnering Thrun with Karlsson so he can try to soak up and absorb as much as he can from him. If Gavanke is there, I'm partnering him with a guy like Vlasic, who's been there, done it, seen it all, and can kind of be a little bit more stay-at-home defenseman while Gavanke tries to create some offense for the Sharks. So, again, who knows how these lines look? I'm sure we'll get an Erik Karlsson trade and throw all this away here before the start of training camp, but wanted to, again, see what we have right now. And this isn't the most talented team, but you can start to kind of squint a little bit and be like, okay, I can start to see some pieces coming together a little bit. And you kind of, that competitive skill, as Mike Grier loves to harp on. But, I think you're putting some of your young players like Zadina, Eklund, you're putting them, and then Bordeleau, at least with my lines, right? You're putting them in a position to succeed where you're putting them around players who've, kind of complement their skill sets, kind of can help protect them a little bit as well. So while they grow into their roles. So that's the way I tried to do it. So you can tell me I'm terrible. Well, you guys will tell me if I'm bad anyway. But want to thank you guys for making it Locked On Sharks again. Your first listen, probably a part of the Locked On Network. We'll be back tomorrow with our Swedish son, William Eklund. So again, make sure you guys are following along for that. Then we have another interview coming next week with one of the 2023 draft class. So that's all I'll say right now. But yeah, that one looks to be locked in right now. So we'll have a 2023 draft class guy joining the show as well next week. So again, make sure you guys follow along wherever you get podcasts. You watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter or X, or it's still Twitter, guys. And Twitter and Threads at My Fry Hole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.